Hello, hello. Stand Up Sales, episode 5. We are pushing through these now. What's up,
Let's
people?
go.
We are doing another episode with my handsome co-host, Dylan Rich. What's up?
David, my brother. Another week, another valuable podcast on how to be good at sales.
Specifically, what are we doing today?
Discovery. So, the most important part of any sales call and any sales process is discovery. Learning about your prospect, what matters to them, not what you think matters to them, and actually having a human-to-human conversation to extract information to better leverage your product or service, or understand that your product or service is not a good fit. It goes both ways. So I think it's the biggest thing that I have to, understand and listen to and coach and train on, as it's, I would say, probably not the hardest thing to coach, but it takes the most time to coach.
I would add to that and say it's probably the one thing that everyone thinks they're good at and is in reality really terrible at.
Yeah, that's fair. And they're terrible at it because they just haven't been taught correctly, right?
Yeah,
They're just
100%.
going off of what they think discovery is supposed to do. So we're going to dig real deep. The whole call is on this. So
Yes, sir.
we got a good 52 minutes of discovery talking.
All right. So the one big learning, and it's funny, we were actually laughing about this before the podcast started. Discovery is actually the worst thing that we could call this process, because discovery is about unearthing things that are cool. But
Right.
discovery in sales is not about discovering things that are cool, right? Discovery is not about that. Discovery
It's
is about
discovering things that aren't cool.
yeah, exactly. It's about discovering things that are fucking useful, because they can be cool and useless, and that is not the goal, right? So I think the one thing that we were talking about before is whenever Dylan's reviewing calls, whenever I'm just doing like reviewing these calls from either people that we coach or clients, whoever it may be, the big thing that we find is a lot of people are doing discovery in a way that they think is going to like get them answers to questions, right? And that is the purpose of it. Yes, you are doing the right thing. However, the answers to the questions that you are getting are crap because you're asking stupid questions.
And you're asking questions just to ask questions because you think that's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And you write down your list of questions. They could be great, as a list, but they're not too great in conversation. That's like the big thing. It's like, does it flow? Does it
Yeah.
sound like you're just reading off a list of questions? Or does it sound like you're actually curious and inquisitive about their actual situation and they can pick up on just human tendencies?
Yeah.
Like if you're like not listening and just waiting for your next chance to speak and ask another question because you're like, this is the good question. This is the one that's going to get me all the information I need.
Yeah.
They're going to be like, all right, like this guy's really not actually listening to me. Like,
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest problems that I find, especially with people who I'm not going to be mean enough to say like people who have been taught sales badly, but from people who have gotten the wrong end of the stick when they've been taught sales. A lot of people are like very heavily reliant on scripts, like
yeah.
worryingly reliant. And it means that it turns discovery into an interrogation, and it's not meant to be that. Like the whole gig during discovery should be empathy, right? You should be trying to empathize with the problems that you're finding with the prospects and then dig deeper into it, right? That is true empathy, not just being like, oh, cool, nice question though. What about this, right? Because no one gives a fuck about that. No one enjoys that. No one enjoys being on the receiving end of that at all, right?
I took great notes, but he hasn't showed up to our next call.
I found out so much about him and the business. Why isn't? Oh, he's. It's 20 minutes later and he's not turned up. Okay, he's no show.
Because you didn't tie, and the biggest thing is called tying the knot, which I learned from my mentor, is Dave. Is like taking all the information in discovery, like what we just said, right? Like if you unearth, even if you do great discovery and you get right questions, you have a good conversation. If you're not able to tie them all together in like a bow, tie the knot is what he called it, then it's all in vain, right? Like if you take all the information, the tidbits, the great conversation, the rapport in the discovery in the first call, but but you're not able to at the end put a bow on it and take everything that they've told you, then tie it in with your solution and package it up to a nice thing for the prospect to fully cognitively understand,
Yeah.
Then it's pretty useless.
Yeah, you're just asking questions for asking questions' sake, kind of going all the way back to where we started in this conversation.
Yeah.
All right, so like, what does bad discovery look like, right? So via negativa, how do we avoid bad discovery? What is bad discovery?
Yeah, so bad discovery, I think it's more of like a framework and a lack of understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if there's like a Webster's dictionary like definition that I can give you. It's kind of just more so like you have to come at it with like things that you want to know about the prospect, not certain questions to ask, but just information that you need to extract. The way in which you extract them could be different on every call, right? We're human beings. Each person is different. You can't go to each sales call, with like the same questions, right? Because things will pop up. You'll get different answers.
Yeah.
So coming to the call, understanding what you need to understand in that part of the sales process, and then navigating your journey to understanding that information, I think is my best way of saying like what is actually good discovery.
Yep. Okay.
Like have a goal for the end of the discovery. Like what do you need to know to move forward or not move forward?
Yep. 100%. And I think that's like inverting that. That is the cause of most bad discoveries I've seen, is that they get on the call and it's like, okay, I need to sell my service. That is the goal of this call. So everything that I'm going to do in discovery is aimed at selling my service. Well, if that person isn't fit for your service, then by your own definition, the call is pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So logically, the first thing you need to do is actively disqualify them to see if they are a fit, right? Because if they aren't, if they are an actual brilliant fit for your business, right now, your goal is sell the service. But if you don't know that from the get-go, then discovery is pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. And your closer or your business partner, whoever closes the deals, will like you much more if you actively disqualify and don't just force things into another call. That's a great point. Yeah, actively disqualify, but at the same time, don't overly disqualify.
Don't be an asshole, yeah.
Yeah. How much money do you make? Yeah, actually, it's probably not going to be a fit here.
First question is economic buying. do you have this much budget? No? Get the fuck out then, guy. No,
that's lazy. That's lazy discovery.
100%.
So that's what discovery is. But why is it important? Why is it important?
So the big thing for me is, right, like when you're on, let's say that we're classically doing tech sales to call close, right? The goal of discovery, at least in my mind, is to paint a picture in the prospect mind that, number one, you give a shit about them, and it's not all about you and you doing your job on this call, which is asking them a bunch of questions. Two, it's about showing them that not only do you understand their problems, but you can understand how the industry and the landscape that you operate in is fixed to deal with those problems and be an expert in the issue, right? So doing a decent discovery in my mind is not only about asking interesting questions that get you answers that, whoever's closing the deal is going to benefit from. It's also about showing them, okay, this person is competent enough to understand not only the problems that I face, but the problems the industry faces, so that when I speak to someone that is actually going to sell me a solution, the solution is more relevant.
Absolutely.
What does good discovery look like for you?
So, that's a good point. Good discovery that looks for me is like asking poignant questions and then actually having the prospect like understand themselves. Like a good
clarity.
Yeah, like they understand what it is. Like they could tell someone else what it is because you've resonated with the pain, and they could go to their buddy who probably has the same pain, right? Pain isn't specific a lot in sales. It's more so like niche and industry and company size and revenue based pain, right? It's business problems. So they went to someone who had a similar business problem, and they're like, hey man, do you know that when you hate doing this thing? Oh yeah, I hate that thing. Oh, well, These guys will do this way. Like if your prospect is able to explain it to someone else, like I think you did a pretty good job of tying the knot and like they feeling heard, and then them actually understanding what it is that you're doing. to the level that they could explain it, not sell it, but explain it to someone else.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting point. It's such an interesting point because especially when you have, so like I was explaining this to one of my clients recently, right? The best way of dealing with the partner objection, if you're ever dealing with like coaching or like high ticket quote unquote sales versus like traditional tech sales, if you're ever in that industry, like selling that thing, the partner objection is not something that you have to bend people around, right? The goal is not to be like, yeah, but like, what if your partner didn't hate this? Would you buy it? It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, but I still want to fucking talk to him, right? Leave me alone. Yeah. The way you get around that is by asking them, okay, what did you find really useful in this? And what do you think your partner's going to find useful in this? Oh, I think my partner's going to really love this part. Okay, like why specifically would they care about that? Oh, well, because they're really interested in blank, 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 and this is going to really help them do X, Y, and Z. And all you're doing is rehearsing that in a way that allows them to go back to their partner and be like, oh, and I think this is going to be really beneficial to you because blah, 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 right? So not only having the ability for them to explain it, but also to go and take that back somewhere else and relay that information in their own words. Otherwise, it just turns into Chinese whispers. And they're like, oh, yeah, they were kind of useful because of this thing. And then they were talking about this. And yeah, I think this would help. And the guy's like, well, okay. Sick, maybe.
Yeah. And like the excitedness to tell their partner.
Yeah, 100%.
But they get off the call and they text their business partner like, hey man, I just had a sick call with these guys. We're going to fix this, this, and this for us. Like, let's talk about this later today.
100%. So,
if you're not making the prospect that excited, like it's not going to go the distance.
So then if we know that like good discovery is X, and the purpose of discovery is to not only kind of like give them the opportunity to explain that in a way that makes sense to them, but will potentially make sense to someone else, then what are the common pitfalls in discovery that people make that are just like absolute no-nos? Not the kind of like the micro improvements, but like the big bad ones that people screw up all the time.
Yeah. So I think it comes down to like relying, like predetermining the call, like forcing the call into the way in which you want it to go, like not making it unnatural, the call. Like if a conversation's going a certain way and then you're like, you know what, I kind of don't want to go this way. I want to go this way. Like obviously you can hold frame and there's other tactics like that. Yeah. But like just from like a human to human perspective, like if you're like talking about like, revenue needs and like their quarterly numbers, and then you go into like something that's totally different. Like, yeah, but how's HR? Or like just like wait,
left,
what?
Immediate left turns.
This was a question that was probably scripted. Like follow the vein. Obviously, don't lose frame and go totally down the route that the prospect wants you to go down, but explore it enough to see how it could benefit. Because there's sometimes, I'm probably sure that you've had this, is like we're both pretty good at discovery, I would like to think. And I would have sometimes like at the total end of the call, the last line of question, like you extract that like golden nugget. But you would have never got there if you didn't actually continue to talk about that thing, because it should be like the 80-20 rule in discovery, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're just you're poking at the bear, right? To get it to roar and tell you what you need it to tell you. And sometimes you need to like continually poke it to get the actual tidbit where you're like, holy shit, this is an actual perfect fit. It was okay. Now it's a perfect fit. But they said at the end because you actually went down a line of questioning. So I guess a bad discovery, I kind of went into what good discovery is there. Bad discovery is like, I wouldn't say like you're like shooting the bear, right? You're not poking. Like you're
really good analogy.
You're angering the bear a lot, and you're not like it's not feeling hurt, right? So bad discovery is talking all about yourself and only worrying about the information that you need, where the prospect is literally in an interrogation.
Yeah, I think the bad discoveries that I've seen, the way that I always phrase it is you're asking surface level questions, right? Yeah, so it's. You ask a question and then you're like, okay, cool. Now I have another question, right? Yeah. It's like, no. Come back and then ask more questions downwards, right?
Tertiary questions.
Oh, good word. So it's like, you can't just get off a topic because you've received like some surface level answer. There's obviously more to it than that. You have to dig down, and that's where they're going to eventually open up a lot more. Most people, when they're asked a question, are going to give the first response that comes back into their head.
Yeah, they're
And be like,
called.
oh yeah, it's this. And you go, okay. And then you go on to the next question. You've not done anything, right? You've just filled in a box on your script where you go, oh, and this is the issue. It probably isn't. It's
They're
probably a
serving.
variant of that. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I just thought of a good analogy. It's like peeling back an onion. Like you don't cry when you take the first skin off, right? You cry when
Mm-hmm.
you get to the bottom, in the middle of the onion, right? You start to tear up. So make the prospect tear up. The only way to do that is peeling back more layers of the onion. So, um, so true. And I've been on calls like that where you're like, "Ah, this guy's just gonna ask me a bunch of questions, isn't he? Well, how many employees you got? Why
Bro,
does that
go on
matter?
LinkedIn.
What does
Go on
that matter?
LinkedIn. It's just lazy. No, 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 no. We need to address this. There are certain things that you can Google. And if you ask me a question that you should have Googled, I'm now annoyed. Because all you did is not prepare enough. And now I'm just going to be an asshole for the rest of the call.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, don't ask easy to understand questions. Like, do your actual research,
Yeah.
especially if you're
Um,
meeting with like the decision maker. Like, why
yeah.
would you not do your research?
It takes like 10 minutes.
5.
It takes
What
5 minutes.
so what I do in the beginning of the day is I look at all my calls. I understand
Yeah.
that they're first calls, they're follow up calls. Like, what is the objective of this call? What is the
Yeah.
reason why we're meeting? And then if it's a brand new call, I don't know the person, right? I do all my research 5 minutes a pop at the beginning of the day. I put all my Apple notes. I do what their name is, their title, if they went to a college that I know, like what could I actually like talk about? Where do they
Mm-hmm.
live? What was their previous experience? Things that you can see on their LinkedIn. Just go to their LinkedIn.
Yeah.
It shows the person that you're on their LinkedIn way before the call.
Yeah.
They get a notification saying, "Oh, this guy that I'm talking with later is at 7 a.m. on my LinkedIn profile, probably doing his research because I talk to other salespeople." Boom, credibility. 2, you actually get the information to be credible on the phone. 3, it takes 15 minutes if you have 3 to 4 calls in a day.
Mm.
Just do it. And then when you come to the call, if you're busy, you're like, oh shit, what was this person? You go to the Apple notes, like, oh, this is the notes that I wrote earlier today. Boom. And then if you have a follow-up call, just search your Apple notes and you have what happened the last call. And I think we went over this, David, is like at the beginning of the next call, hey, is this stuff still the correct stuff that you said on the first call?
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So prepare. For sure.
Yeah, definitely prepare. Sorry, I completely derailed the previous conversation by being irritable for no reason there. But no, okay. So like I think the consideration for me when you go down the route of discovery is if you are going to
I'm an analogy guy. So, yeah. 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 That's why you got to incentivize your SDRs with qualified calls booked. Yeah. Well, we talked about this in the last episodes. But there's a lot of different qualification methods, but BANT is like the most brain dead version to remember is like budget, authority, need, and timeline, just to repeat it for the viewers that should know this. But I mean, basic level qualifications, like that's the bare minimum. And then just dig deep into those 4 columns: budget, authority, need, and timeline. Obviously, you don't need to dig deep into authority. Are you sure you're the CEO? So you're sure you can sign the checks? Yeah, yeah, yep, Yep. It's because it allows the prospect to drive the call. Yeah. I do ask that question on inbound. I ask how did you find I ask how did you find us? Because I genuinely, being a marketer, I like to know what's working and what's not working from like a channel perspective. Like, how'd you find us? Oh, I've been following you on Twitter for months now. Okay, boom. Now I kind of have a baseline of like yeah, context, but not like, I mean, what piqued your interest enough to book a call? That is like a middle of the ground question, but yeah, like why are you on the phone today? Well, actually, I'm kind of bored. It's the end of December here, and I don't really have anything else to do. So I figured I liked your name. It's my son's name, and I hopped in the call. Hmm. Yeah, that's good marketing. That's a good funnel. If they come in like, yes, I need exactly what you need. Yeah. Speaking of that, David, in the corner of my eye, I got a I got a LinkedIn connection request. This is a perfect thing. It goes, "Hi, Dylan. How are things going at Automated Revenue?" That's it. That's it. That's the whole connection request. Yeah. What are you expecting? So let's see. Yeah, he's the founder at a integrated paid media and digital marketing company. So I'm assuming he's probably going to talk to me about paid ads or digital marketing. But how are things at Automated Radio? Great. We just started. I should respond to that. Things are perfect. We just launched a brand new paid ads and digital marketing campaign. The ROAS is 25x. Like, what are you expecting? Yeah, what are you leading to? I discovered. Yeah, yeah. And people like talking about themselves. And then you have a tertiary question on the answer. And listen to what they said, because that question you can't script. I mean, you can kind of like have a framework for what type of question, but the exact question you can't script. It's based off the answer. So actually listen. Like that's the biggest thing for me. It's like listen, actually listen, actively listen to people. Yeah. So I think discovery stops kind of when you like what you said, that aha moment. Like don't over discover. Like don't beat a dead horse. Especially like sometimes like an inbound call, it's a little bit less discovery needed because they're coming in primed from a marketing funnel. But I think it's a gut feeling for me. Like know when you have it kind of in the bag and like capitalize on that peak. Because if what if you ask the next question and that next question totally derails the call? They're like, oh wow, I didn't. Oh yeah, we already have someone for that actually. Um, I actually did that a couple months ago. Actually, I had it. It was on like our closing call, but we were talking about something that talking about automations. He goes, "Oh, I didn't know you guys did automations. We actually just hired an automation agency, like changed the whole thing." And I was just like, kind of adding stuff to it. Like it was like from his discovery, he was talking about how things were bad. I mean, the automation agency just wasn't doing the right thing. But he was like, I hate when this and this happens. Like, oh, we can automate that. He goes, oh, you guys do automations, and then his whole understanding of what we did now flipped to something that we were not talking about for 90% of the call. So don't over discover. When you know you have it, and they're like, okay, yeah, this makes a lot of sense, then go towards the next part of the call, which is more so pitch and pricing. Yeah. No. Enlighten us. Yeah. 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 Um, third job 6 years ago. New York City, Manhattan. Most of them. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. 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 Correct. Yeah. 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 Especially if they had a bad experience with something. No. Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Thank you for that. I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's sales psychology. Um, very unnecessary. But no, that's actually a really, really good point because I think everyone's been in that situation, whether it's in sales or just in life. Like you say the wrong thing on a date, or like you do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing. Like you're right. It's like all these memories just. It happens with smell too. I mean, obviously on sales related. But yes, sound, sales, and smell trigger a lot of different memories. So good point. So I think the next thing here is like, so we talked about what's a good discovery framework, how to do a bad discovery, um, ask them stuff they don't like, and then talk about it, and trigger all these bad memories. And then the last thing we had written down was what is the actual like goal of discovery, like having a goal, what should be your goals of discovery, why you should be doing it. If you're new and listening to this, or maybe you're just need to sharpen some skills, um, what do you think is the goal? Yeah, that's a good goal. And then like it's good to classify and understand where you are. So if you're an SDR, right? I take an affirmation to them, and you take more of an affirmation to the closer. Is SDRs sometimes do that over discovery just because they don't complete the race, right? Like you hand off the baton, but if you like run past the baton person, you're going to fumble the baton. You guys are going to lose the race, right? So you have to understand when to hand off, right? The other person needs to, the sales closer needs to start running, and then you hand it off to them. It's seamless, right? You're not stopping and handing it to the person and then they're starting. So understanding it as in that analogy, like you have to stop discovery at a certain point where they're like, oh yeah, and they start asking like what is the price, what are like asking buying questions, and then you have to be like, well, I think a great thing that I used to use was they don't really pay me enough for that information, and like make a yeah, like that's above my pay grade, John. They don't trust me with that kind of information. So to get you everything you want, I don't want to give you any false information. Let's get you scheduled with someone who's a little bit more knowledgeable than I am in those things. His name's going to be John. Are you available later today, tomorrow, whatever? And that kind of breaks the ice because they're asking for something and you're not giving it to them. But if they laugh about it and they're like, "Oh, well, I've actually been a junior person before." Everyone's been in your shoes, right? So like resonate with that, and that's like the thing, right? You talk about something, they're gonna be like in their memory bank, like, "Oh, I remember when I had to do something like that, or I didn't have all the information." So very important, the SDR to like defer to the next call without giving away too much to hurt yourself. Yeah, 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 yeah. Understand where you live in the process. Be okay with it. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And priming, they need both. I mean, in the two call situation, even if you're the closer taking the first call and you have a two call close that's set up, you have to take off your closer hat and put on your SDR hat to actually get that second call to happen and to be successful. Because I think a lot of people that do both, right? If you're a solopreneur or a small sales team where you're on the first call and the demo call, sometimes you muddy those waters up and then make the second call irrelevant because you gave away too much information. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because once they cognitively think they know, like you need them to not totally know what you do, because then that's going to keep their curiosity to continue further to sell. But if you give them everything, like, oh, I think I know what this is. I'm the expert now. Like, I don't need this. That's a very dangerous flick of the mind. Discovery and demos. Yeah, yeah. I mean, in perfect situation here, I think we don't want to give too much around the demo call and allow users to viewers to wait till episode 6. So if you found a good discovery conversation here, tune in next week, and we will get deeper into how to actually have a successful demo and not do just feature pitching.